There is a rule that every dangerous man in history has followed, and almost nobody has ever said it out loud. It is this: the moment people know exactly what you are capable of, you have already lost half your power. John Wick never raises his voice. He never explains himself. He never tells a room full of armed men what he is about to do to them. And that silence is not personality. It is strategy. A 300-year-old Spanish priest wrote the exact playbook for this kind of power long before guns, before assassins, before New York City existed. His name was Baltasar Gracián, and what he wrote in 1647 is so accurate about human nature that it reads like a manual for exactly the kind of control John Wick uses in every single film. By the end of this video, you will understand why the calmest person in the room is almost always the most dangerous one. And you will never look at restraint the same way again. Welcome to the 100-Day Challenge. Today we are breaking down The Art of Worldly Wisdom by Baltasar Gracián through the mindset, discipline, and actions of John Wick. Gracian was not a warrior. He was a Jesuit priest living in Spain during one of the most politically vicious periods in European history, a world of court intrigue, betrayal, and constant maneuvering for power. He watched how people really operated, not how they claimed to operate, and he wrote down 300 maxims on how to survive and win in a world full of people who are smarter, hungrier, and more dangerous than you expect. Thousands of people have read this book as a guide to office politics or personal ambition. Almost nobody has connected it to the most disciplined assassin in modern cinema. Today, we are changing that. Before we go further, understand what kind of book this actually is, because it changes everything about how you should listen to it. Gracian did not write a book of comfort. He wrote a book of survival for people operating inside dangerous, competitive systems. Courts, kingdoms, rival houses, places where a single miscalculation could end a life or a legacy. Sound familiar? That is the exact world John Wick lives inside. The High Table, the Continental, the Assassin Underworld. These are modern courts with ancient rules. And every single character who breaks those rules pays for it in blood. What Gracian understood about 17th century Spain, the John Wick universe understood about 21st century crime. Power is never really about strength. It is about information, timing, restraint, and reputation. And today we are going to walk through 13 of his sharpest ideas, one at a time. Each one mapped directly onto a moment from Wick's world that makes it impossible to forget. It helps to understand exactly where Gracian was standing when he wrote this book. He spent much of his life inside the Jesuit order, while also moving through the courts of Spanish nobility, close enough to real political power to see how it actually operated behind closed doors, but never fully protected by it himself. That position, close to power, but never fully safe inside it, is exactly why his observations feel less like abstract philosophy and more like field notes from someone who watched the game being played at the highest level and wrote down every mechanism he noticed. He was, in a sense, an outsider with total access, which is precisely the vantage point John Wick occupies inside his own world. A man who moves fluently through the highest levels of the assassin underworld, while never fully belonging to any single faction within it. Main Lesson 1: The weapon you never use. Gracian wrote one of his most important ideas plainly: know how to show your teeth. He did not mean attack. He meant something far more calculated. Let people know, without ever proving it directly, that harming you would cost them everything. The animal that never has to fight is the animal every other animal already fears. The moment you have to prove your strength, you have revealed a weakness, because it means someone doubted you enough to test it. Watch how this plays out with John Wick. In the first film, before he has fired a single bullet, before the audience has seen him do anything except grieve, the criminal underworld is already terrified. Viggo Tarasov does not need to see Wick kill anyone to understand the danger he is in. He simply says the name, and the fear appears on every face in the room. That fear was built years earlier through a reputation so total that Wick never has to re-earn it. He is called the Baba Yaga, not because people saw him do something small, but because the stories about what he has done are terrifying enough that nobody wants to find out if they are true. Viggo tells his own son in a scene that has become iconic precisely because of how much weight it carries, that Wick once killed 3 men in a bar with a pencil, using nothing but the tool that happened to be closest to his hand. Nobody in that room saw it happen. It does not matter. The story alone is a weapon more effective than any gun. This is exactly Gracian's point. Reputation is a weapon you carry without ever drawing it. Most people make the mistake of trying to prove their strength constantly, arguing, threatening, posting, boasting, and every time you do that, you are spending the very currency Gracian is telling you to protect. The people who are actually dangerous rarely have to say a word. Their history speaks before they do. Think about how differently people behave around someone whose reputation precedes them versus someone who has to announce their own importance. The first commands quiet respect. The second invites challenge, because bragging is, by definition, an admission that your reputation has not done its job on its own. But here is where it gets interesting, because reputation alone is fragile. It only works as long as it remains unconfirmed and untested. The instant Wick is forced to actually demonstrate his full capability in the nightclub scene, in the church, in the endless corridors of violence that follow, something shifts. The myth becomes proof, and proof is far more dangerous than myth, because myth can be doubted, and proof cannot. Gracian warns about this too. He says, never reveal the full extent of your ability, because once people have seen the ceiling, they stop fearing what is above it. Wick's tragedy is that the world keeps forcing him to show his full hand, and every time he does, the piece he actually wants gets further away. Notice this pattern across the entire saga. Each film strips away another layer of mystery, until, by the later chapters, the entire world has seen exactly what he can do, and the fear has curdled into something else entirely. A shared, desperate hunger to be the one who finally kills the legend. That shift, from feared myth to hunted trophy, is the price of a reputation that had to be proven instead of simply believed. There is a smaller detail worth pausing on here, because it reveals just how deliberately this idea is built into the character. Wick's fighting style, the tight, economical gun-fu that has become the visual signature of the entire franchise, is itself a demonstration of reputation management in motion. He does not waste a single bullet, a single movement, a single unnecessary flourish. Every strike lands with purpose. Gracian would recognize this instantly as restraint applied even inside violence itself, because a man who fights with excess motion is a man revealing more of his method than necessary, giving future opponents free information about how to counter him. Wick's efficiency is not just cinematic style, it is discipline extended all the way down to the smallest physical detail, protecting even his fighting technique from being fully read by anyone watching. Main lesson 2. Never enter a fight you did not choose. Gracian's second lesson cuts directly against how most people think about conflict. He says, do not compete. Not because competing is weak, but because every competition, even the ones you win, costs you resources, attention, and exposure that a patient rival can use against you later. The wise man, Gracian writes, wins by making conflict unnecessary, not by winning conflict after conflict until he is worn down. This is the entire emotional structure of the first John Wick film. He does not want war. He is retired. He buries his wife. He gets a dog. He wants nothing to do with the Continental, the High Table, or any of the criminal machinery he spent years inside. The war finds him because Yosef Tarasov cannot resist stealing his car and killing his dog. A small, arrogant act by someone who has never had to face real consequences. Wick did not choose this fight. It was forced onto him. And that distinction matters enormously, because it means every ounce of violence that follows is defensive, not aggressive, in his own mind. He is not seeking power. He is answering an insult that should never have happened. Gracian would tell you this is the only kind of conflict worth entering. The kind you did not start and cannot honorably avoid. Every other kind, the arguments online, the rivalries at work, the drama with people who have nothing to lose, is a trap designed to drain you. The High Table itself operates on rules that try to prevent unnecessary competition. Excommunicado status, sanctuary at the Continental, the marker system. Because even a world built entirely on killers understands that constant, chaotic conflict destroys everyone eventually. Wick becomes the target only when he breaks that structure. And even then, notice how much of the saga is Wick trying to find a way out of fighting entirely, trying to negotiate, trying to buy his freedom, trying anything except the war he keeps getting dragged back into. This is where most people misunderstand power completely. They think the strong man fights everyone who challenges him. Gracian and Wick both prove the opposite. The strong man avoids 99 fights and only ever finishes the one he cannot walk away from. Look closely at how Wick actually behaves when given the option to avoid violence. He tries to pay his debt cleanly in the second film. He attempts diplomacy with the Bowery King. He asks Winston for time, for options, for anything other than another war. Every time the story forces him back into the fight, it is because someone else closed every other door, not because Wick went looking for one to kick down. Even his physical posture in these negotiation scenes reflects this restraint. Hands open, voice level, no wasted aggression until the exact moment aggression becomes the only language left available to him. Gracian's original readers would have recognized this instinct immediately from their own experience of court politics, where the noble who survived longest was rarely the one who dueled the most, but the one who understood that every unnecessary duel weakened his standing for the one confrontation that truly mattered. Applied to modern life, this reads as a warning against the constant, low-stakes conflicts so many people get pulled into voluntarily. Arguments they did not need to have, rivalries that produce nothing but exhaustion. The wisdom is not in winning every available fight. It is in recognizing how few of them were ever actually necessary in the first place. Main Lesson 3. The Economy of Favors. Here is a line from Gracian that sounds almost too practical to be philosophy. "Keep a stock of dependence," he wrote, "because there will come a day when you need something only another person can give you, and the man who has helped no one has no one to call on when the walls close in." He is not describing friendship in the emotional sense. He is describing an economy, a ledger of favors that quietly determines who survives a crisis and who does not. The entire John Wick universe is built, almost literally, on this exact idea. The marker system is Gracian's theory turned into an actual object. A gold coin, an unbreakable promise. A debt that must be repaid, regardless of cost. Wick survives film after film, not purely through violence, but through a network of obligations he built over decades. The Continental's neutral ground, Winston's protection, the Bowery King's resources, the tunnel of information beneath New York that exists entirely because Wick paid into that system long before he needed to withdraw from it. Notice something crucial here. Wick never treats these relationships as disposable. He honors markers, even when honoring them is inconvenient or dangerous, because he understands what Gracian understood 3 centuries earlier. A favor economy only works if you are known to actually pay your debts. The instant you are seen as someone who takes help and gives nothing back, the entire network closes to you. And in Wick's world, that closure is a death sentence. This is why the High Table's excommunicado order is so devastating. It does not just make him a target, it cuts him out of the very economy of favors that kept him alive for years, stripping away hotel rooms, weapons access, medical care, every single privilege that his years of paid-in loyalty had earned him. Most people build no such reserve. They treat every relationship as either useless or purely transactional in the moment, never investing when there is nothing to immediately gain. Gracian's insight, proven again and again through Wick's survival, is that the favors you extend when you need nothing are the only ones that will ever be repaid when you need everything. Watch how this plays out with the character of Sophia in the 4th film, a woman Wick once helped who is bound by a marker to help him in return, even though doing so puts her own daughter at risk. She resents it, she resists it, but she honors it, because in this world, a debt unpaid is worse than a death sentence. It is a permanent stain that follows you everywhere you go, a reputation problem far more damaging than any single bullet. Main Lesson 4. Never open your heart completely. Gracian warns against something that sounds cold until you understand why he means it. Never open your heart to everyone, he writes, because the ones closest to you will always have the most power to destroy you, simply because they know exactly where you are unguarded. This is not an instruction to be loveless. It is a warning that intimacy without discernment is a vulnerability, not a virtue. John Wick's entire arc is a demonstration of what happens when this rule is broken and when it is followed. His wife Helen is the one person who saw him completely, who knew who he really was and loved him anyway. And that love is presented as beautiful. But it is also the single point through which his carefully built retirement collapses. Her death, and later the death of the dog she left him, are what pull him back into a world he had sealed shut. Gracian would say this is exactly the danger of full exposure. The more completely someone sees you, the more completely your world can be destabilized when they are taken from you. This is not a criticism of love itself. It is a warning about how few people should ever hold that kind of access to your foundations. But watch how Wick behaves with everyone else after that. He does not confide in Winston fully. He does not explain his plans to the Bowery King. He gives the Continental staff exactly the information they need and nothing more. He operates, professionally and emotionally, on a strict need-to-know basis. And that discipline is precisely why so few people can predict or manipulate him. Even his allies are kept at a careful distance, not out of cruelty, but out of the same instinct Gracian describes. Trust is not binary. It is metered out in exact amounts to exact people. And the moment you hand it out freely, you have handed someone the map to your own destruction. Consider how many characters in this saga try to get close to Wick for their own advantage. Information brokers, rival assassins, even supposed friends. And how consistently he keeps just enough distance that none of them ever gets the full picture. That is not paranoia. That is Gracian's discretion in action, applied to a world where full disclosure genuinely gets people killed. Main Lesson 5. Never be a slave to your first impulse. This might be the most important idea in the entire book, and it is the one that separates John Wick from every other character in his own films. Gracian writes that the fool is ruled by his first emotion, while the wise man lets the first wave of feeling pass before he acts, because the first impulse is almost always the wrong one. Anger, in particular, he calls a poison that convinces you it is clarity. Every villain in the John Wick saga is, in some way, a portrait of exactly what Gracian is warning against. Joseph acts on impulse and steals the car, setting off a chain of events that destroys his entire family's empire. Santino D'Antonio breaks the most sacred rule of the Continental in a fit of desperate ambition and is executed for it within hours. Even the High Table itself, for all its ancient rules, keeps making the same mistake again and again, reacting to Wick out of wounded pride rather than patient calculation, and it keeps costing them everything. Wick is different, and the difference is not that he feels less. If anything, he feels more than anyone else in these films. It is that his rage never controls his execution. Every kill is precise. Every plan is considered. Even in his most emotional moments, grieving his wife, grieving his dog, facing betrayal after betrayal, his hands do not shake, and his aim does not waver. That gap between what he feels and what he does is the entire secret of his competence. Gracian would say this is the difference between a man who has emotions and a man who is owned by them. The wise man, he writes, feels the storm completely and still chooses exactly where to stand. Think about how differently the story would have gone if Wick had simply charged into Tarasov's mansion in blind fury the night his dog died. He does not. He waits. He prepares. He arms himself properly. He chooses his moment. The grief is real. The execution is disciplined. That combination is what makes him nearly impossible to stop. Main Lesson 6. Become water, not stone. Gracian has a maxim that is often overlooked because it sounds so simple. Adapt yourself to those around you, he writes, because the man who can only operate one way in one world will eventually find himself in a world that does not fit him, and there he will fail. The truly capable person can move between very different environments without ever losing themselves in the process. John Wick moves through an extraordinary number of different worlds across this saga, each with its own rules, its own language, its own codes of conduct. He is fluent in the formal etiquette of the Continental, where violence is forbidden on the premises and business is conducted with old world courtesy. He is equally fluent in the brutal, wordless efficiency of combat, where a single glance decides who lives. He can sit across from the Bowery King in an underground kingdom built from the cities forgotten, and speak that world's language of loyalty and survival. He can even step, briefly, into ordinary civilian life, into a hotel lobby, a car dealership, a quiet street, without breaking character in either direction. Most men who are dangerous in one context become obvious and vulnerable the moment they step into another. Wick never does. Gracian's point here is not about being fake or having no true self. It is about recognizing that different environments demand different presentations of the same underlying discipline. The version of Wick who negotiates calmly with Winston and the version of Wick who tears through an army of assassins are the same man, applying the same core principles: patience, precision, restraint, just calibrated differently for the room he is standing in. This is a skill almost nobody trains deliberately, and it is exactly why so many capable people fail the moment they leave their one comfortable environment. They mistake their specific skill for their whole identity, and when the context changes, they have nothing left to adapt with. Main Lesson 7. Never show your full hand. There is a maxim in Gracian's book that reads almost like a warning label. Do not commit yourself entirely to anything, he writes, and always keep something held back, some reserve of ability or resource that nobody else knows exists, because the day will come when that hidden reserve is the only thing that saves you. This idea is woven through nearly every major set piece in the John Wick saga, Wick is constantly revealed to have prepared for contingencies nobody expected. Weapons cached in walls and floors. Escape routes memorized years in advance. Allies positioned quietly before he ever needs to call on them. In the very first film, the concrete floor of his basement hides an arsenal that has clearly been sitting untouched for years, prepared during his retirement in case the world he left ever came looking for him. He did not need that reserve for years. He kept it anyway. Gracian would recognize this instantly as the mark of a truly prudent man, someone who prepares for the version of the future he hopes never arrives. This principle extends beyond weapons into information itself. Wick rarely tells anyone his full plan. He lets allies and enemies alike see only the portion of his strategy relevant to them in that moment, which means that even people who believe they understand him are usually working with an incomplete picture. This is precisely why he is so difficult to predict, even for characters who have known him for decades. Gracian's warning here is aimed squarely at people who exhaust themselves proving everything up front, spending every resource, revealing every plan, holding nothing back for the moment things go wrong. The wise man always keeps a card nobody else has seen, because the day everyone else is out of options is exactly the day that hidden card becomes priceless. Baltasar Gracián never met an assassin, never saw a gun, and never imagined a world like the one John Wick moves through. And yet almost every rule he wrote down maps perfectly onto the way Wick survives. Build a reputation so total that you rarely have to prove it, and understand that every time you are forced to prove it, some of its power is spent forever. Avoid every fight you did not choose, and finish only the one you cannot walk away from. Invest in a network of obligations long before you need to withdraw from it, and always, always pay what you owe. Guard your heart carefully, because the people closest to you hold the most power to break you, and trust should be measured out, never given away freely. Never let your first emotion make your decisions for you, because the wise man feels the fire completely and still keeps his hands steady. Learn to move between different worlds without losing the core of who you are. Keep something in reserve that nobody else knows about, because the day everyone else runs out of options is the day that reserve saves your life. Study your rivals until you understand them better than they understand themselves, and never let anyone else gain that same understanding of you. Refuse to let anyone see the moment they have gotten under your skin, because composure is a weapon they can never take from you. Choose your ground before you choose your fight, because terrain decided in advance often decides the outcome before the first move is made. Stay courteous even in conflict, because real strength never needs to prove itself through cruelty. And above everything else, master the timing of your own patience, knowing exactly how long to wait, and knowing without hesitation the precise moment waiting stops being wise. The most dangerous people you will ever meet are rarely loud. They do not need to be. Their power was built years before the moment you finally see it. In restraint, in patience, in every fight they refused to have, in every debt they quietly paid, in every emotion they felt completely and controlled anyway. That is the real lesson hiding inside 300-year-old maxims and inside every frame of John Wick. Power that has to prove itself constantly is already weak. Power that never has to explain itself is the only kind that lasts. If this breakdown changed how you see restraint and power, subscribe to Neo Self, because tomorrow we go even deeper into the mindset that built the world's most disciplined killer. This is day 18 of the 100-day challenge, and we are just getting started.